Hello and welcome to the 7th in my video series on 3ds Max tips and tricks. In this part I'll be going over modifiers. Okay, so I'll start off by making myself a little box, that'll do. And we jump into the modifier tab. Now to apply a modifier, just click the drop down and you get a whole list of different modifiers, and you can browse this list or get to the one you want a little quicker by typing into it. So the first one I'm going to show you is Turbo Smooth. There we are. Now, first thing Turbo Smooth will do is it will subdivide all of your quads into 4, and if you've got any triangles, it'll make those into 3 quads with a little tripod in the middle, and it will try and make everything kind of smooth, which isn't always exactly what you want. So in the case of this box, we don't really want to make it into this kind of sphere-like shape. We want to tell Turbo Smooth not to round off where smoothing groups aren't following. So if we tick smoothing groups, we can see that it is subdivided all of our faces into 4, but now it's no longer smoothing around it. And being able to control by smoothing groups gives us a lot of control over how we want to do this. So let's say, for example, you've made a low poly box. So if I can turn off seeing Turbo Smooth by clicking the little light bulb here. We've made a box here, and we want to make a high poly version which has nice sort of rounded corners. Well, that's pretty easy to do using Turbo Smooth, so I'll turn that back on. You can use iterations to, rather than putting lots of Turbo Smooth modifiers on the stack, we can put on several iterations, and what I'm doing here is I'm deliberately putting in quite a lot so that we have what will effectively be a tighter edge. I'm now going to make another Turbo Smooth modifier, but this time I'm not going to tick by smoothing groups. So what we've made here is a box with this sort of nice rounded, I'll turn off the grid and bounding box, slightly rounded edges, which could be made even smoother still by a couple more iterations. And we can see we've got a nice sort of gently rounded edges, but not too round across the whole face. We can go back and we can control things at different points on the modifier stack. So if we wanted those to be covering a shorter distance, we could increase the iterations here, and that would sharpen it up, because now we've got more subdivisions before we get to this one here. Or reducing this will actually make this now a lot more blobby. So we've got a lot of control here. That's one of the beauties of modifiers. You can change things underneath them, provided you don't go into something like an edit poly, which will sort of start breaking things. Or there are a couple of other modifiers which you have to tell it to recalculate. But that said, we can use edit poly, and sometimes it won't break things. So I'm just going to deliberately make a bit of a unusual change to one of the sides, just so we've got something to look at when we do symmetry. So we've got kind of these, I don't know, spike thing coming out of one side, but not the other side. So now we'll use the symmetry modifier. So bring that down and type in SY. I also have it. I have some of my modifiers put onto buttons, which is easy to do if you customize your interface. You can do that by clicking Configure Modifier Sets, and you'll be able to make buttons from there. Now, symmetry, you can see, has made a identical copy, and it's split it halfway down the middle, which is great. Sometimes it puts it in the wrong place, so we can just go into mirror and we can move the mirror, and that will reposition where the line of symmetry is. So if we go right the way out, you can see actually we go past the object and we end up having kind of 2 of them. Or we can go further in and give a different result again. So lots of flexibility. We can also do it in different axes as well. So here we have it the other way around. Okay, I'll stick with the first one. If we make ourselves a second copy, I used Shift and drag on the move to create an instance there. Instances are represented in the modifier stack by bold letters. Let's say, for example, I've made, I'll go right the way back to a box primitive, so I can select multiple modifiers on the stack by using Shift or using Control. I'll right click and I'll delete all of these. So we're back to our box, and I've made another box and I've placed several in my scene, let's say, and we've got them as instances. Now I've decided I want to change this. So if I right click and convert to editable poly, what happens here is we see this is no longer bold. this is no longer an instance of the other object. So if I move this up, it doesn't change this one. The way to get around this, instead of converting to an editable poly, we use the edit poly modifier, and that will allow us now, if we change one of them, it'll change both of them. And if you do want to drop this down to just an editable poly, rather than doing collapse all, which will break the instancing again, if we use collapse 2, then we have a still bold editable poly, and it's still an instance of the other one. Do be aware, however, that collapsing is a irreversible operation. When you collapse down, you're making it into an editable poly, which you can't get your modifiers back once you've done that. But sometimes you know you're happy with them and it's okay to do that. So. Okay, so now I'm going to make an object I'm going to work with some other modifiers on. I did this sort of object before in the last video, so I'm not really going to go into too much detail of what's going on here. Just using garment maker here. Turn off auto mesh, and I'll make a this particular object. What's nice about it is it has a fairly uniform but still kind of natural distribution of triangles throughout it, which is nice. And actually I'll go now into making an object which has triangles into an object which just uses quads. For that we can use quadify mesh. However, quadify mesh is not perfect. You'll notice there are triangles in this, which, hang on, triangles are not quads, but we can actually then use a single turbo smooth to subdivide all of our triangles. So let me focus on just one of these here. Let's look at the one near the gizmo here, this triangle. If we turn on turbo smooth, we can see it's divided into 3 quads, so now we no longer have any triangles. However, this doesn't actually solve the underlying problem of bad mesh flow. If you're taking this into a program like ZBrush or something like that, we still kind of have the same problem. If I turn up my turbo smooth iterations, you'll see what that problem is. Perhaps one more time. Okay, do you see this sort of pinching which will happen? And that's kind of unavoidable if you've got a nonsensical mesh flow. You'll end up with this pinching. You can reduce it a little bit by using a relax. I'll show you that. Or will I? Where is it? There we are. Oh, missed. Relax. And if you do lots of iterations of relax, then it can sometimes pull apart the pinching. But I've actually tried this before, and honestly, relax isn't particularly effective at solving this problem. Which is why I like the result that Garment Maker gives. If I decide to then go into let's go really high density here, maybe not 0.8, maybe 0.6 should be okay. We'll make an object which Garment Maker will try and spread out the triangles very evenly. It takes a little while to process it sometimes, but once it's done, it's done. There we are. And we don't get the pinching anywhere in the model. And if we do decide to then use a turbo smooth, I'll just make sure that I'm not going to crash. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to crash. If we use a single turbo smooth modifier now, even if we zoom in, we've not got any pinching. Okay, so this is about what I want to work with. Just because my computer is not particularly good, I'm going to actually take the turbo smooth. I'm going to hide that, and that will just speed up my performance a little bit. So hopefully I won't get too much slowdown. And like I said before, modifiers are great because you can actually change them from underneath later. So what I'll do is I'll carry on with what I'm going to show you, and then I'll turn this back on to give us a little extra sharpness. Before I do that, though, I'm just going to make sure that if I zoom right into this, that we've got a nice spread of triangles. Here we go. Okay, so we've got some slightly thin ones going on here. I'm just going to apply a single relax, and that makes a nicer spread, I think. So I'll just do it maybe 10 times. Now that's looking great. So this will work really nicely. We've got a kind of honeycombing pattern, and they're all very even in shape, quads. So great. I'll turn those back off. Okay, let's use now freeform displace, which is FFD. So if I'll bring that down and type FFD, I'm going to use 3x3x3. This will bring up a sort of box type thing, but because I've got only a plane, it looks very flat. You'll just have to set my word for it that at each of these points there's two of them, and it is sort of a volume. And I'm going to select, go into control points, I'm going to select the middle, as it happens, the middle two, and I'm going to pull these up. And what this is doing is perhaps if I turn off wires, this is making a kind of hill out of what I've got here. And freeform deform is great because you can change the geometry underneath it, and it'll still be trying to move the same stuff or whatever new stuff you've got underneath it. Whereas in edit poly, if you try to do a similar thing with edit poly, if you change things underneath it, it'll renumber all the vertices, and that'll break whatever transformations you were trying to make there. And freeform deform is quite powerful. You can do quite a lot of stuff with it. Just moving the middle up is a pretty unimaginative use of it. Give it a go. Okay, I'm now going to show you a few different displacement techniques. Now, the reason this is just one modifier, but you need to know a little bit about maps or making new maps to really understand quite how powerful displace can be for making things particularly like terrain, but even sort of surfaces of objects can be quite. They can be roughed up a bit using displace, and it's really powerful. So I'm going to go make a displace modifier. I could have pulled that down from there and typed in displace, but this is fine for me. Blame it on the fact that I'm working on a small screen. So under displace modifier, I've got a parameter called map. If I click on that, it'll ask me if I want to make a new map, which I do. First one I'm going to show you is let's start with a cellular map. So double click it, and it'll make me a cellular map. Now we can't edit that from here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit M to bring up my materials palette, which has just come on off screen, sorry about that. And here's my materials palette. I'll now drag this over, and if I make this an instance, then any changes I make to this one will be made to the one in my displace map slot. And to see what I'm doing, I'm just going to double click on the map, and that'll bring up a little preview of it, and you can see what cellular looks like, which is cool. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce the strength, and unfortunately this is going to get very crowded very quickly. Sorry, I don't. Perhaps I should have recorded this at a high resolution and just scale it down, but never mind. You can see what's happening here. So I'm now looking underneath at the parameters for the object, for the displace, and I'm going to reduce the strength to negative, maybe 5. And you can see what's happened here is it's now cutting away. Anywhere you see white, it is cutting away at strength 5, but depending on the whiteness of each little cell, then it cuts away at the geometry, which is really cool. So we make this quite interesting looking surface. And you can use this for making kind of normal, tileable normal maps and stuff that are quite interesting. So that's cellular, and you can play around with the settings. If I reduce the tiling to just 0.5 by 0.5, you can see we make much larger ones. So I'll go with something like that, which is quite interesting. Another useful displacement map, so I'm just going to add another displace modifier on top and give it a new map. So this time I'm going to show you just simple noise, which is another really useful one. Again, I'll drag it up here. Instance is fine. Double click on it to see a preview of it. We no longer need our cellular one, so I'll just get rid of that. Now noise can be really kind of blurry, which is why it's nice if you don't want blurry to turn on fractal, which will always kind of go in and it'll figure out little bits within the little bits, which is pretty cool. If you want a slightly more contrasty version, you can actually change these here to being closer together to the high and the low, so 0.8 and 0.2 will make a more contrasty version, which is pretty cool. And I'm going to apply that at I'm going to give it a positive strength, so this one's pulling up away from the surface, so let's try just 2. And what's happening here is if I zoom right in, because this map is, in fact if I turn this off you'll see what's going on a little bit better. So I'm turning off the cellular underneath it. It is doing stuff. You can see that it's making a gentle kind of nudge. If I make this much stronger, you'll perhaps see this. And we make a kind of more lumpy thing, but I'm not actually looking to do that with this modifier. What I'm looking to do is make kind of smaller changes. So I'm going to turn the tiling way up, and that should allow us to see lots of changes. Now this strength is obviously now much too strong, but you can see now we've got smaller changes, so maybe even strength 1, just to give it a slight grain, which can be quite nice. Actually, I think I'm going to take the tiling down a little bit. Let's try 30 by 30. Yeah, I'm not massively happy with how this is, but you could play around with this forever and just fiddle with the settings. I'll try not to get too distracted by this. So let's turn both my displacements on. We can see we've got a kind of more lumpy now kind of shape. And let's do one final displacement. The last one I want to show you is quite nice for making kind of cracks and things. So let's go into the map, bring that up, and this time it's going to be smoke. Oh, not scrolled down far enough. Smoke. And I'm going to drag this out up to here. Again, an instance. Close my last one down, open up a new one. Okay, right now this may look a little uninteresting. I'll make this a little bit bigger so you can see it a little better. What I'm going to do with this though is I'm going to turn the iterations down to just 3. And I'm going to change the exponent. Let's try different exponents. Yeah, 1, maybe 0.5. Yeah, 0.5 is looking nice. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to pull up from the geometry these kind of crack type things to make little ridges. Now what I could do is I could use a negative strength to pull everything else down, but that seems kind of backwards to me. What I'd rather do is, and I guess that's kind of what I did with the cellular, but what I'd rather do is just show you this other type of map that allows us to play around with maps we've already got. So I'm just going to drag this across into my other one, but instead of using smoke, we're going to use color correction. So let's find that, and we're going to, because I dragged this across, we actually do want the map we just had as this submap. So here it is in here, and if I double click on this, we'll open this one up here. I'm just going to name this corrected so you can see this was the smoke before and this is now the smoke after. And what I'm going to do in color correction is I'm going to scroll down. Oh, here we are, invert, and we'll see that's now inverted the map from what it was before. And I'm going to change the contrast and increase the contrast to give us those nice dark blacks, and I might actually reduce the brightness a little bit. Yeah, this is looking just how I want it, which is great. Something like that. Perfect. Okay, we're now going to use this one in our displacement map. I'll just make this a bit smaller so you can, it's still there, you can have a look at it. So I'm just going to drag this from my material into my map slot, and it can be an instance, it's fine. And now we have this one being our displacement modifier. So I'm going to now use a positive strength to pull up by that, and I'll just turn these other ones off so you can again see what's happening. And we can see this is much larger than I had intended. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into this one. Because we're using an instance, it's fine when we make changes to this. It'll make changes to the color corrected version. So let's try 10 by 10, and that's better. I guess when I made it chose to keep it, it must have forgotten that it was an instance, or not instanced it or something. So that's a little bit too strong. Let's try just 5 by 5. That's kind of cool. Perhaps a little bit too strong. Let's try just 2, maybe 3. We turn them all on, and okay, it looks like kind of a bit of a mess. I've done better versions before, but if I now go down in my modifier stack, I'll just make this a bit bigger again. Collapse these ones here. We go down to, remember I said that I was going to turn these back on when I was done, and it would look a little bit nicer. Let's do that now. So we've got a little bit more sharp details, which looks good. The kind of twisted triangles, if I turn these on, can be fixed a little bit if you do a relax, but if you go too far with relax, then you'll end up just making everything look like a blurry, blobby mess, which probably isn't what you had in mind. But yeah, it's possible to get some really nice effects with displacement, and it's great for making terrain and stuff like that. or for making tileable textures of interesting surfaces, if you're making normal maps or something like that. The very last modifier I'm going to show you is one called Optimize. I'm going to tell you what this is and then sort of tell you not to use it. It's a very clever optimization technique, and this will probably take forever, so I'm just going to actually turn off Turbo Smooth, in fact delete it from the stack, just so it's not quite so high poly. And I'll get rid of Relax because we want to see what we're looking at. Optimizer tries to figure out where you're wasting triangles. If I turn on my triangles here, you can see obviously I've got an awful lot of them, but some of them are doing more than others. Optimizer goes in and it says I'll take away the ones that aren't doing much. So what we do to use it is we click Calculate. It then figures out exactly the best way of reducing the number of verts, and then we type in either our target vertex count. Let's say we want to make a model which is 2,000 triangles, 2,000 verts. We type in 2,000 and it makes us a 2,000 vert model, and this is just 6% of the verts. I wouldn't recommend, unless you're making a kind of low poly from a high poly and it's a very inorganic shape, and something like this actually works pretty well. But if you do anything else, you'll see that it tends to break quite a lot of stuff. I'll get rid of these. What it is quite good for, though, is identifying in your mesh where you're wasting verts. So if I make a little very quick, we'll do this if I make some caps. So let's go to the top and make some cap segments. Now, those cap segments aren't actually adjusting our geometry in any way. So when we use Optimizer on it, the first ones that'll get spotted and removed are the ones on the top. So if I start to reduce this, and also the rings around the side are doing nothing as well. You can see that it's taking away the ones that aren't doing anything first before it changes anything else. So if I turn wires off, what's really cool here is I'm taking down the number of verts, and only near the end do I start to see any changes to the actual geometry. So that's really cool, and you can use that to identify where in your mesh you've got kind of wastage and approximately how much wastage you've got. So when we took this down to 25%, we didn't actually change the model at all. Well, we didn't change the effective appearance of the model at all. So we know that we're wasting about 75% of verts, which is obviously very wasteful, but that's how I made the cylinder. So I was aware of that. But it can be useful for sort of sliding it down and seeing quite how wasteful you've been. So it's more an evaluative tool that I would suggest than anything you might actually use for making low poly geometry, just because nothing will ever be as good. So if I take this down now, you can see that it made this crunch way before it got rid of all of the useless geometry on the top. So it's not perfect, but it's a pretty cool little tool. One final thing to note with the Optimizer is if you then change the underlying geometry, you will have to recalculate this again, so be aware of that. Okay, so I wasn't too happy with the result that I got in the video I just made, so I'm going to show you another one that I made earlier. What I'm going to do rather than hiding all of these, I've just gone to the bottommost one, and here's a little tool you can use. If you click this, you can toggle off the end result. So toggling it on will show the end result, and toggling it off will not. So as I click through them, it'll show a bit more. Garment Maker, just to make the underlying geometry. Turbo Smooth a lot of times. Then Displaced with Noise Map first. Then a cellular map. Relaxed it to get rid of the kind of crunching on the edges, and finally the smoke to add those cool little ridges. And you can see this one just works a little better for whatever reason. Probably because I spent a little bit longer on it. Okay, that's all of the modifiers I was going to show you on this video. Next video I'll be going into rendering tips and tricks, so I'll see you there. Thanks for watching.